What is up, everyone? JD here. I hope you're doing well today. Got a review and disassembly to do, so let's get into it. All right, we're looking at the Vosteed Ankylo. Really excited to look into my very own version of this one. The only one that I got to check out prior to this one was actually a pass around. It's a little bit nicer when you get to have the knife for more than just a few days time to do kind of more of an overview style. And the real nice part about it is I can do more cutting, and then I can do my own disassembly and tell you guys exactly how difficult or easy it may be to do this one. This is their pivot lock system, so we're going to kick it off with a couple of size comparisons, and then we'll jump into everything. All right, so to kick it off for size comparison, I'm bringing out a couple of other Vosteeds that I also love equally as much, and we have the Vosteed Psyop, which is going to be more full size, very similar in size to the Ankylo, and then we have the Vosteed Hedgehog, which is going to be more of your small EDC. I really love how these two have that matching frag pattern as well. Let's bring out a couple of other size comparisons. Okay, and on the table we have the Kunwu Padre and we have the Kaiser Sparrow on the table. I think the Ankylo is more similar to the Sparrow. It's got a little bit more length on it and it's just a little bit shorter, but I would still consider all of these to be more full-sized EDCs. Let's check out the profiles on this particular knife as well. All right, close carry, it's going to be pretty similar to your Psyop, a little bit shorter, and it's going to be actually a little bit bigger than your Sparrow. Your Sparrow kind of is that all-purpose EDC where you can even flex a little bit into like your gents carry. Let's check out the thickness profile and get an idea of how thick it'll be in the hand and in the pocket. So it's got just a little bit more thickness with this style of knife than you see on that Sparrow, and then against the Ankylo with their top liner lock, also just a touch more thickness, not a lot, just a little bit more. Let's go ahead and grab the scale, bring it out here, and check the weight on this one. All right, we got the scale here. Yep, coming in at 4.9 ounces. So there is some weight to this one with this style lock and knife. Let's go ahead and jump into thoughts and impressions with this one. What I'm going to do first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and send it down to the garage. We'll look at a little bit of cutting, and when we come back, we'll get the spine whack test done. All right, guys, in the garage, we got the Ankylo here. Man, that feels good, man. I know it's a little bit of a chunkier knife, but sometimes that extra girth for a knife that's going to be a work knife is really nice. Okay, so I have been using it, so I'm not sure if it's me or if it's Roland's. Yeah, right about there somewhere. It is a little bit rough, but it's not a factory fresh edge at all, and I'm not going to really worry about it because all I'm going to do when we're done here is I'm just going to strap it on up. So I'm going to start with the zip tie. Let's go ahead, put it about in the spot where I was just complaining about it being a little bit wonky going through that catalog paper. Good factory edge. I mean, it still feels like it's biting nicely. I'm not having to put a ton of pressure on there. I'm going to leave that on the board and hope that that splinter is not going into my finger. I'm going to need to replace this here soon. But it's going through they're good. It's got good bite. You know, it's been used but not abused in the amount of time that I've had it. Let's see how it feels going through the denim roll. Yeah, it's got very nice bite, good belly, so it's able to go through this denim very nicely. Again, minimal effort, getting all the way down to the cutting board to easily make the slices happen. It's a little wonky here because I'm like on the part of those old denim jeans where they kind of curve a little bit. So that rolled up funny. But I mean, as you can see, it went through all of that. No issues whatsoever. We're going to do everybody's favorite. I got a nice piece of single ply cardboard here. Let's see how it feels moving through the material. Oh gosh. I wasn't ready for that. It's so slicey that it kind of curved out because I was expecting to meet a little bit more resistance. But for such a, what I would constitute feels like a hard use folder, It is really moving through this cardboard very easily. Vosteed continuing to really impress with their factory edges. They understand the cutting geometry to have the knife feel very slicey regardless of the size of the knife. And their LMAX seems to perform really well. I mean, look at that movement, guys. All right, let's just go through the cardboard. A Q-tip, guys. No surprises here. Anything that's messed up like that, I'm going to discount it to my cutting board here, which is probably either needing to be flipped over or just go ahead and replace it. It sees a ton of use, and I'm really not having to put a bunch of effort into going through this cardboard with the tip. So I'm really happy about that. Let me get this goo off, and then we'll run it back through the catalog paper and see if it seems any worse than it did when we started out. And if not, I'm going to count it as being a good heat treat with a little bit of cutting. You know what I said? You know, we're just testing it a little. We're not running it super hard. I just want to see, you know, if there's anything noticeable. I don't think that there will be. I've done quite a bit of their LMAX here as of late, it feels like. I swear I did this with this knife already, but I'm thinking maybe I'm recollecting when I had the pass around and I did just a little bit of cutting with it. Oh, I got goof off all over me. But let's just see, going through the paper, after that little bit of cutting, I am feeling a little something catch there. I'll just drop that out here in a little bit. But I mean, all in all, maybe I found what it was that, oh no, that's right. I think when I set this down at some point in time, I hit a piece where the knife went through when I was trying to slice off a piece, and it feels like it's about the midway point of where I'm hitting something. So I'll strop that out, and it was doing that before we did this cutting, and after, I would say it probably feels about the same there. So for me, this is really good edge retaining LMAX, so I'm happy about that. And, you know, ergonomically, I really like the Ankylo. I think it's a very comfortable, hard use knife. All right, so we'll jump into my thoughts about cutting and ergos and everything in just a moment. Let's go ahead and get the spine whack test out of the way. This will be my first attempt with the pivot lock to do this, and I'm just trying to make sure my hand is secure. All right, nice and solid lockup. Yep, nice and solid, guys. That's about what I expected from this one with this type of lock. Yeah, very good. Very loud, but very good. All right, thoughts and impressions, and then we'll go ahead and jump into disassembly. Ergonomically, this thing is super comfortable. The chunky nature for me with the larger hands, I really appreciate and enjoy that one. Feels very much like a worker, hard use type knife. You probably could get away with carrying this one somewhere in the office because the pocket clip's not super offensive. And, you know, when you open it, it does have very clicky-clacky sounds. Ouch. Clicky-clacky sounds, but really not that bad. And it's not, to me, an aggressive-looking blade shape, but it's not the most classy knife out there again. The Sparrow and even the Psyop without the frag pattern, and maybe without the frag pattern I would probably say you could flex into the gents, but very comfortable in hand. I noticed left-handed I am riding over top of that pivot lock, but when I'm squeezing on it, I'm not really noticing that it is going in. It does take a little bit of force to get this lock to go in, similar to the top liner lock, unlike some button locks that don't have a very strong spring to them. The jimping is very nice for the deployment on the front flipper. I would have liked a little bit of a tighter jimping, but truth be told, I have not failed it at all. It's not been an issue for deploying it with that front flipper in any way, shape, or form. It's been very, very responsive. I do like the fact that they have that tight jimping on this small flipper tab, and you do, at first, if you're not kind of ripping it, you can kind of fail it because the pivot lock is really pushing aggressively into the blade for the detent and the lockup, so you got to give it like a little bit of force to flick. But otherwise, you know, if you do it lightly, that pivot lock system is going to stop the blade from its momentum. So you do want to give it a little bit of effort, not a lot, not like you really have to manhandle it or anything like that, but you just want to be deliberate with the deployment with this type of lock, in my experience so far. Pocket clip remains to be one of those things with Vosteed, you know, with their milled titanium pocket clips. They do a good job of getting it all the way to the end and carrying the liner as far out as they can and getting those screws tucked in there. And then in some instances, you know, they'll get the liner out far enough to where they can carry it to where I would say it's a respectable point. And then, you know, in this construction, you only have the 2 screws here. They're trying to, you know, make it really beefy, which I get. But I would say, you know, you got your stop pin screw. Just do 2 body screws here. Get rid of that lanyard hole, make it a post, and move that out here because your liner actually goes out far enough, or integrate it into this back bolt here and have that lower bolt there, because I mean, it's not awful, guys. It's no worse than a Spyderco, I should say, but you're going to have about that much of the knife handle sticking out in the end, which is not horrible. I just wish that they would get it in there for a full deep carry. Now, it was very comfortable while cutting. The LMAX seems to be well done. It was biting into the material very well. You have a very nice sheep's foot blade here with an upswept belly, so it was really sawing into the material, and then you were able to do really nice pinch grip detail work. For me, I like to pinch it like so. Nice secure grip, and then I'm able to get a little bit more power behind it, a little bit more detail on it, especially if I get it and index it. That is really easy to get behind and control. I land right behind or right on the cut here for that clip. So it works really nicely for me. You got a nice thin blade here, full hollow grind going almost the full length of the blade up to the swedge. No drag, no resistance going through the material, so I really liked that a lot. You got a forward finger choil here, so if you do need to choke up for some more detailed work, it's going to work really nicely for you. And then for me, I mainly find that I'm just holding it right here, right on this landing pad, middle finger right here in the cutout, and my fingers back here. And you do have enough room hanging off the back here if you needed to do something a little bit more oriented towards puncturing before you're able to start your cut, and then kind of repositioning there. The opening hole's done pretty good too. I like these keyhole styles that have a little bit of a more aggressive finish here. It's not super sharp, but I do like the fact that I can use either the fingernail or the meat of my finger for that deployment. Sounds are really good on this one too. So I did want to demonstrate there because a couple of people on my shorts were like, oh, it bounces. Eee. It bounces because I'm holding the lockdown. If you don't hold the lockdown, it doesn't bounce. You just got to find the timing, just like button locks. Or you can do like you do with crossbar locks and just push it in, swing it, and let go of the button as you're swinging, and the detent will hold it in place. So if you don't like for it to bounce, which I'm not really sure why people have an issue with bouncing it closed, that just indicates that there's free movement in the pivot and that it's very easy to do. So I'm not quite sure I understand that at all. But, you know, we're about 10 minutes into the review piece of it. Let's go ahead and get everything set up and transition over for the disassembly of the Ankylo. All right, and for the first disassembly, guys, I do recommend WeHotBits. They're linked down below for your ease of location. I also keep these linked down there. They're kind of, I believe they're like circuit board Q-tips or circuit board cleaner. I'm not quite sure. I don't think I'll need a bunch, but I am going to go ahead just for this disassembly to make it a little bit easier on me. I'm going to remove that pocket clip so I can really see what's going on. When we get it broken down during the disassembly, I'll let you guys know if you actually really need to do that. Now, I do have T6 bits, but I do like this T6 driver from WeHi. It's just a little bit easier and quicker to access than it is the second driver, which I do have sitting over there to be able to take this down a little bit faster. So you're looking at steel hardware, no surprise there. I'm going to set this aside for a second. I'm going to go ahead and take the 3 hardware screws off, and then it looks like it's T6 to get into this pivot. So I'm hoping it all gets disassembled from this side. I will say I know that I can see, I don't think you will be able to, but I can see that the liner for the pivot lock is on this side. When I push it in, I can see it disengage from this side. So everything is over here. Let's just find out. All right, very nice, very easy to disassemble. I almost scratched my scale. I'll set these over here on this one. And actually, before I take that stop pin screw out, okay, so these are different sizes. I want to keep that in mind. So I'm going to put them in order of right to left. Hopefully I'll remember that here in a little bit. Before I do that, was what I was going to say. I'm going to go ahead and take off the cover for that pivot lock. Okay, so not overly tightened. And these are very flat, long screws. I'm going to set these 2 over here. But they're not overly tight at all, guys, at all. So I want to keep that in mind when I go to reassemble it. I know that these are probably an exact piece. So it's a flat piece of titanium that's covering up the lock. We'll set that over there. I'm going to go ahead now and remove my final screw on the stop pin. All of these were in here very snug. These 2 body screws, the body screw back here and the body screw up here, were longer because they're going into a piece of hardware. This screw here, because it's only going into the liner, is the one that goes in the middle. So just kind of explaining what I'm seeing as I go through. Hopefully this helps you all. All right, so able to remove the outer scale, and it is very well lubed up. I'm going to clean and put my own lube back on here, but it's very lubed all around where it connects to this lock. So let's go ahead and remove this lock. It is very easy to do. So there's your detent ball and your lock bar access. This looks like it's just wearing in. It doesn't appear to have any lube on that spring part in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and just clean this as I go. All right, so let me disassemble it here. We'll do a nice action shot here when we're done. Let's go ahead and remove the second part of the cover here. So this is the second part here. This has got a ton of lube on it. And then we'll go ahead and bring the blade up with the bearings. Very tight tolerances, guys. Very tight tolerances. So let me do it this way so that everybody can kind of get a nice shot of it. But it felt very easy to disassemble. I'm going to go ahead and clean everything up, and this has more of like the lithium grease on it around the knife, but I'm just going to go ahead and put my own lube on here and lube it up with what I got, and we'll keep an eye on it and see how it does. So go ahead and clean. This is going to be really easy cleaning too because of the giant style pivot. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit this detent ball. This is what I use these circuit board cleaners for. Yeah, look at that. That has a ton. Let me grab just a second one. That has a ton of lube in there. All right, let's see if we can get a little bit more out of there. There we go. Nice. I'll hang on to those in case I need them for anything else. This Elmax, whatever they used to kind of, coat the grease on there, it definitely did something to the blade's edge. So I'm just going to pop up the bearing and take that off because I don't want anything internally falling apart. But you can see how that button really works. Actually, while I have that here, I'm going to go ahead and just clean all around the central pivot and the stop pin. Clean. Oh, I'm pushing in there, and actually these are going to come in handy, it looks like, to kind of clean here as well. So it definitely looks like you might want to lube a little bit more on this particular one, on this particular knife. If you're going to put your own lube on it, I would recommend it anyway. That came out really dirty. Let me move that. Okay, I think we're good here. Let me clean the bearings next. Appreciate y'all's patience. Patience while I do this. I've never taken one of these apart before. So I'm just going to roll the bearings around here. It's a little bit bigger, so it's kind of hard to roll it. I wonder if Skiff will do bearings like this. They roll very nicely. Very nicely. Should be interesting to try to tune this pivot as well. Should be very interesting to tune. Trying to be very careful too, because these are really thin, so I don't want to bend them up or kink them up or anything like that. Oh, there's grease on the inside. I did not get it very well. I could feel it as I was cleaning it. Let me double check this one. Yeah, it's definitely more of a heavier weighted grease that they're using on there. All right, last one for the pivot to go together. This one here, you can tell it sits on that piece there, and then you can see the track here on the inside on how that gets reassembled. Gonna just put a dab of grease on that, and then I just want to use my own grease here, so I'm just gonna clean all of this off. And then I'll make sure once it's clean to go ahead and use my own grease. All right, so I think we got everything. I think we're ready for the reassembly, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the top bearing. I'm going to grab my hops number 9. And on this particular one, I'm going to have to do it a little bit different. So I'm going to drop it on my fingertip like I normally do. And then for this one, I'm just going to have to go around the bearing and kind of work my way around and get plenty of lube on there. And the way these are stamped, it's very interesting. I mean, it feels like they could just fall out. So hopefully Skiff can make something for this that's very compatible, especially as there's more of these that come around. So we'll get that one started. And then I'm going to go ahead and oops, it's all down the barrel of this. Let me take a little bit off. I'm just going to work it on myself. So, I mean, it's super tight. If I feel like this is not doing as good a job, the hops, I'll go ahead and put my white lightning grease on here that I use for like my Chris Reeve knives and stuff like that. So go ahead and drop this one on. Oh, and just using the pockets, that's where I'm putting the, yeah, that is very tight tolerances, guys, very tight. All right, let's get some more lube here. All right, stop falling over, making my life hard. As it bounces and shoots the grease everywhere. Let me stick this over here. So obnoxious. It's got grease on my lap, or oil on my laptop now, on my other knives. So you guys hopefully are seeing what I'm doing here with this one. Just kind of working a coating on. Hops is really good about staying in place and providing a lot of good friction protection. So I don't go too crazy with it. All right, so this should be interesting. I am going to put this piece back in first. This was sitting on there, and it was using that stop pin to kind of hold it in place. It's a little loose. And then I am going to, in this instance, actually put it right on the tip of the detent ball and the lock. It may be a little bit of experimenting here. My hope is that it doesn't. Very interesting how it screws down. Yeah, I mean, it falls into place very easily. Everything's in place, and it looks like the outer scale, when you bolt everything down, is kind of what holds everything into place. Man, this stuff is everywhere. Oh, this is old grease. So everywhere that I'm seeing that there's been like markings from the lock, the pivot moving is kind of where I'm putting the grease down. And I'm hoping that's correct. So we'll find out here in a minute. All right. So I think what I'm going to do first is I'm going to do the body screw in the back that I saw it fastened to, it being the pivot lock. I don't know what else to call it. Pivot lock bar. And then I'm going to use the short one, which was locking the scale down also. But that had the pivot lock on it. And then I'll put the last body screw in on the stop pin because that's what was holding the housing in place that was separate from the pivot lock bar. I mean, I'm just making, oh, I'm so sorry. I just realized how I had my fingers situated. No offense intended. I am sorry. That's funny. All right. So again, as I mentioned earlier, the pivot lock itself, the lock cover, or the pivot lock cover, was not overly tightened in here. I don't think I cleaned this off, so we'll just give it a wipe down. All right, I think we're almost done, guys, and then we'll wrap up the review. Okay. All right, nice and solid. I like the tolerances on here are not, there's no play. I mean, it's just really well machined. Vosteed's doing such a good job with their machining. Okay, there we go. I was like, what is happening? All right, so I'm not over tightening this pivot. We'll check for play and see how this adjusts. Okay, there we go. Once it stops, I stop. Ooh. Okay. So it has stopped. No side to side. We are centered. Backing it out a little. No play. Centered. I think we're centered. Maybe a little bit on the show side. All right, let me just check everything. Let's do this. Let's readjust this stuff here. Now that everything's in play. Yeah, it's favoring the show side ever so slightly. So I'm wondering if just a little tightening here, a little tightening. This probably really needs to be tightened. All right, now let's see. Actually, yeah, this should, right? Am I wrong here? Oh, that's all the way tight. Yeah, I think it's just favoring the pocket clip side ever so slightly. But I might have the pivot too tight. It was not tight at all. There we go. Did we come back center? Feels smooth. That's as tight as that goes, dude. All right, let's see. I'm gonna try to do like one adjustment and then we'll put the pocket clip on and wrap this video up. This is turn it into a long video. I think we're centered now. It's pretty close, guys. It is pretty close. It's definitely just a little bit that way, but it's not awful. And action feels about like what it did before. No side to side play. I mean, it is locked up solid. All right, let me go ahead and flip it over to the table. I'm just putting the pocket clip back on. All right, so we're done with the review. We're done with the disassembly. I have noticed here that they have a few of these Ankylos coming out with the 154 cm aluminum and pivot lock for around the same price as they are with the Hedgehog. So I think it is a very good time to be a knife enthusiast. You're getting lots of lock options, lots of size options and color combinations. Vosteed just continuing to innovate and do really unique designs and really unique locks that I really do like a lot. Sorry, I'm trying to stay off that lock bar on the Hedgehog there, trying to open that one left-handed. But very cool. I did notice that the pivot lock, the newer models, came with the reversible pocket clip, whereas the pre-orders did not. So a little disappointed that didn't have that option, but I do appreciate the clean look being A-righty, and this is really smooth. If you guys are interested in how the pivot lock holds up with just the hops versus the lithium grease, make sure you're coming to the lives and stuff like that. I'll make sure to give updates, and then as it makes appearances in future videos, I'll continue to keep that update. But honestly, I would say a little bit more involved than some of your liner lock knives, but very much still easier than your button locks and your crossbar locks. And your shark locks. That's where I'm landing on this one. So pivot lock systems done well like this, that are, in my opinion, manageable, very manageable for your disassembly and maintenance, which you won't have to do that often, truth be told. Very much liking that. So I enjoy getting the Ankylo. It is definitely one of my favorite pickups so far for 2024. I think the Psyop is probably my top favorite pickup for 2024, and then I would say the Ankylo, just off the top of my head during this video. Let me know what you thought about this one down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this review and disassembly. If you did, on your way out, if you could do me a favor and leave a like, it'll help the channel. If you enjoyed the content, consider subscribing. I do videos like this all the time, and I want to give a special thank you to my channel members. I appreciate that extra layer of loyalty that you provide to my channel. It goes a long way for me, and I thank you for that. I hope all of you have a fantastic week. I love you guys. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.